All right, they are all just about signed, sealed, and delivered at this point. It's National Signing Day 2016. This is Big 12 Breakdown coming your way every Wednesday night with the best bloggers in the conference, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. So we've got a cast of 3 along with myself tonight with Gerald Tracy from Cowboys Ride for Free, of course, Hunter Cook. What will he say tonight from V for the Matador, and Sean Cordy from Today's You. All right, guys, you guys drive the show, and this is the day that's the most important day of the year, possibly, definitely the most important day of the offseason. And the Big 12 may be saved by Texas. If you put a lot of stock in the recruiting rankings, a lot of other conferences took the top spots. But, wow, Texas, out of nowhere, Gerald. Who wants to jump on the top of the conference here?
Oh, just okay. I thought there was going to be another part of the question there, so I guess I'll go ahead and go on. But Texas, I'm really impressed with those 7 signees. They really surprised people about. Obviously, jumping from where they were to I think top 10 at one point. I didn't get to look at the final rankings, but I think that's amazing that they can do that. But I mean, at the same time, it is Texas, so it shouldn't be that surprising. I'm more interested to see what they can do with them on the field, because I don't think recruiting's ever been the biggest problem in Austin.
Hey, Hunter, your thoughts about the Longhorns, or whatever caught your eye in this recruiting class? I think Art Briles was pretty satisfied, 17 according to ESPN and Rivals. They got 8 from the ESPN 300. TCU and Oklahoma also had decent classes as well.
Yeah, I was really surprised more TCU than Texas. I can't remember where I saw this. They had something like 7 or 8 4-star commits, and they've had like 7 or 8 over the past couple of years as well. Like, they basically went really, really above and beyond this recruiting class, and been high on TCU all last offseason, all this offseason, and I'll probably continue to be high on them as long as I don't get my house burned down by my Red Raider faithful. I mean, I'm kind of like programmed to sit here and tell you that, like, oh, these recruiting rankings don't matter, beep, boop. I mean, because we're like the gritty 2-star linebacker of schools over here. But, you know, they have to matter at some point. There's got to be a point where you say, okay, these guys know what the heck they're talking about, and it shows, especially when schools like Texas and Oklahoma, Baylor, TCU, they recruit so well, and they're towards the top of the conference every year. But, yeah, TCU and obviously Texas. Texas came out of nowhere. It was pretty incredible.
Exactly. Sean, we talked about it before we came on. Texas, according to ESPN, jumped 22 spots today.
Yeah, it was incredible. According to 24/7, that's who I look at the most, is that they were outside of the top 35, and now they're sitting at 11 thanks to, I think, 8 ESPN top 300s coming in, and not everyone was expected to come. Brandon Jones, the top safety in the nation, was supposed to go to Texas A&M. A&M even made a documentary about him. He was supposed to go there. He went over to Texas. They also pull in one of the top defensive tackles, Jordan Elliott, who went to Harbaugh in Michigan, decommitted about a week ago, comes over to UT. Charlie Strong's doing something. Like Hunter said, it's really what they do with them, or Gerald, what he said, is what they do with them on the field. They've had talent come in year after. What first or second place rankings the past, I don't know how long, past 2 decades. It's been crazy, but they haven't been as successful as they have been in the past. So this is kind of make it or break it year, considering this great class that they surprisingly ended up with.
Sean, you've got to fill us in there. You blew right past that. Brandon Jones flipped from Texas A&M to Texas.
He was never committed, but was expected.
Documentary for a kid who hasn't even stepped on the field, let alone signed?
It was like a few-minute video. It wasn't like a huge E60 thing. It was something. It was just a little video online.
That's kind of understated, but it's still one of the more ridiculous things I've heard of.
What if I told you a school will go to all lengths to get someone and then have it blow it up in their face?
Only go to the rival. Everybody
Texas A&M story since the beginning of time.
We don't even play them anymore, and we still talk about them every day.
How can you not? It's great. It's too funny not to talk about.
So you guys really revel at the downfall of Texas, but now you're turning it on Texas A&M in spite of Texas here. So, Gerald, let's talk some Oklahoma State here. Right. So you're coming off a 10-win season. We talked about it last week and the last couple of weeks in regards to recruiting versus what you've been able to produce on the field. So despite the 10 wins, kind of disappointing losing the final 3, mostly in blowout fashion, you're sitting there in the mid-40s. Regardless of the service, 24/7 rivals ESPN, pretty much in the mid-40s across the board. A couple 4-star recruits come in. Your thoughts about the Cowboys class?
I mean, it's a little better than I expected it to be, and I will say that I was surprised with Gundy and Co. today. They didn't go out and, I mean, the one big guy they really got was Tremont Moore, who announced his commitment later last night. Calvin Bundage, Edmond Santa Fe guy, big hitting safety, from what I've seen on his film, pretty good. And then they also got a quarterback to replace Nick Starkel, who they lost a while back, in Keandre Woodchee. This guy, he's able to move around the pocket. Don't know if you guys have been able to see his film. His throwing motion's a little different, but I mean, as we all know, college football, you can almost get away with that depending on the system. So the class is better than was expected, but it still isn't right there. They brought in a lot of big offensive linemen because that was the biggest issue on campus last year. Nobody could protect Mason Rudolph. So I'm hoping maybe one or two of those guys will be able to either push for a starting job or get the starting job. But it's a little it's one of those classes where it's going to be something that you have to look at in a few years, because either these guys are really going to grow or they're going to be average like they are right now, and they're not going to do much.
Hunter, you're pretty much running neck and neck with Oklahoma State here in the mid-40s. Your thoughts about the Red Raiders? Did you sign any defensive players out of the what do you got here? 23.
Surprisingly, yes, we did. We got 24, I think, total signees with a couple guys already on campus, a couple JUCO guys smattered in there, and 14 of those are defenders. And the last time I checked, either 7 or 8 of them are defensive linemen. We already have a linebacker who's going to play defensive line on campus, Jonathan Piccone. We have a kid out of Keller who is either a 3 or 4-star, depending on what you look at. His name is Houston Miller. I don't know. I think he's only a 3 or 4-star because of size, because this kid can play. He's all over the field, led his team in tackles as a defensive end, which is absurd and should not happen in modern football. I don't really know how that worked out, but hey, we're here. And on the offensive side, we got a bunch of players to really, really bolster what we're losing. I mean, we're losing Jakeem Grant, we're losing DeAndre Washington. We have 2 JUCO guys coming in, which, by whatever publication you look at, are arguably the top 2 JUCO wide receivers in the country. They're really, really good. Names are Dequan Bowman and Derek Willis, and they're going to play instantly. As long as another guy, Jordan Brooks, I believe his last name is Brooks, but Brooks, 3-star linebacker coming in. All these guys, they're immediate playing time, which is where I think we kind of sold all these defensive players on is, hey, we're already really young, but you come in here, you got a chance to start, especially with the turnover that we had on the defensive line. I mean, we lost everyone except Braden Fajoko, so kind of need those guys to play well.
Hey, Sean, we really need to get to Baylor here because outside of Texas, they're on the surface, the story here with the 17th rated class. Art Browse made the comment today, hey, we've done pretty well with much lower rated classes, so at least on paper, a really good group for Baylor.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this is the best class Baylor's had in program history. There's no doubt about that. And a few years ago, Baylor fans would get excited seeing a 3-star Kendall Wright come in. And now you're getting 4-star, near 5-star players coming in. It was kind of disappointing to see Brandon Jones didn't come over, obviously, to Texas. Wouldn't get enough playing time at Baylor right away. But still, Baylor had a huge get taking Parrish Cobb, getting him to decommit from Oklahoma within the week, and getting him to come over here. He's an in-city product from Waco. Should be getting some good playing time. He was an All-American cornerback. should be a great addition. And they're also getting some great players up front with Bravion Roy, who's a great defensive tackle, should fill in for Andrew Billings pretty well. And then, of course, you have the offensive power. You got 2 4-star wide receivers in Trendavian Dixon and Devin Duvernay, and you also have 4-star offensive linemen Patrick Hudson and J.P. Euclerides. I can't quite pronounce his name right, but it's an incredible class for Baylor right now. There's not much else to say. It's the best talent they have, and Riles has been doing great stuff with 3-star talent. You can only imagine what he can do with 4-star.
Fantastic. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and then next year you got a 5-star linebacker coming in. So let's see about that.
Yeah.
These stud defensive linemen for Baylor that are leaving, how highly recruited were they? Or did they come out of nowhere?
Oakman was a transfer from Penn State, and I never tracked his recruiting over there up in the Northeast. You have to imagine he was something because he's an incredible athletic freak of nature. And Andrew Billings set state records in Texas powerlifting as a senior in high school and still holds some of those records. He was a huge recruit too, but not quite to the level that these players are.
Okay, because I remember you saying a couple weeks ago that Baylor's never had high-grade defensive players come in, and then they turn out 2 of the best defensive linemen in the country this past season or the past 2 seasons with these guys. Any concern about the Big 12 here as a whole? Because Texas really shot to the top here. They're a fringe top 10 class. Baylor's in the top 20, TCU, OU, fringe top 20. Looks like West Virginia made a pretty decent move and finishing at 37. 2 ESPN 300 commits going to the Mountaineers. They had a strong class with 27 and 3 4-stars. So really not, aside, unless you make the argument for Texas and really vying for that top 10 spot, all the other conferences had, a couple schools in there, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, and of course Clemson, Florida State out in the ACC that were vying for the high top 10 rankings. So concerns, Gerald, about the conference as a whole. I believe they just barely had the fewest number of ESPN 300 commits. It wasn't a low total compared to the other 3 or 4 conferences they were competing with, but still the lowest total.
I mean, I think you have to a little bit, just because whenever you watch like the national championship game, when I watched that, Alabama and Clemson seem to be able to just kind of take one guy out, put him in. There's very few Big 12 teams that we can see do that. Oklahoma State, behind Agbo, they had a decent guy, but not somebody who could really keep up the pace. And, you look at a lot of Big 12 teams, you can't find that. I think that it's a little worrisome, but it's not something that I don't think will kill them in the end, if that makes sense. But
did Texas Tech address its needs, which are defense, and you talked about some of the linebackers that you liked, and some of the guys that were promised a little playing time if they were able to pull through. But do you expect impact right out of the gate in 2016 with some of these guys?
Man, I have no idea what to think. It's Texas Tech. Anyone can come in and blow it out of the water and be incredible, but also anyone can come in and just kind of like tail off into nothing. We've had a couple of really, really highly recruited players come in here and just honestly flop. Rika Levy comes to mind. Either a 4-star or 5-star out of JUCO, comes in here expected to be this big run plug for us, and man, he just underperformed. A whole bunch of other guys we've brought in who just haven't really lived up to their expectations. So I think Cliff's on the right track with David Gibbs and new strength and conditioning coach we had, Rusty Witt. Hopefully, maybe. We'll know when we see him on the field, but this is Texas Tech. It's the Bermuda Triangle for rational thought, and no one really knows what's going to happen. We're just kind of all along on the crazy roller coaster. I wish I had an answer, but I don't. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Okay, I'm going to Sean for answers. We're going to get out of the Bermuda Triangle for a second here. So, Sean, if you could throw out 1 or 2 players, maybe that we could most likely have the greatest probability of making any kind of impact across the conference? Because I know you're all over the entire conference.
Yeah.
So one or two guys that you
Obviously
expect to be impact players in 2016.
All right. Obviously, the only 5-star recruit in the conference, Caleb Kelly out of California. He's going to fill in for Eric Stryker for Oklahoma. Really nice. He's an improvement over Stryker, if you want to say that. He's still a little bit raw. We don't know if he's going to be the emotional leader that Stryker was, but he has all the intangibles and physical gifts, and a little more than he did. He played in a kind of hybrid defense back in California. He kind of lined up as a cornerback, linebacker hybrid, and he's also an edge rusher. He's a really unique kind of player that can make an immediate impact, I can see. And another one that I'm going to say is strange. He's only a 3-star recruit, and I love him. I would probably put him as a 4-star. Chase Allen. He wasn't committed anywhere before, but he was expecting to go to Michigan, and he went to Iowa State. That says something there. I mean, maybe he was looking at Michigan getting a top tight end. He wouldn't get enough playing time under Harbaugh. But for him to stay in state with Iowa State, it's incredible. He's a 6'6" tight end, incredibly athletic. Quentin Bundridge, one of their top wide receivers, is leaving. So he's going to get some playing time to get some targets that he wouldn't have necessarily had before. And with the new coach in Iowa State, this is a perfect chance for him to emerge.
So we're about 6 to 8 weeks away from spring football, and based on what you typically see in early enrollee figures, it's usually about 3 to 4 per team, something in that range. I've seen as high as 7 or 8, so we would guess to see, with the typical class being in the low 20s, about a quarter of these guys on the field in the spring, and we'll start to get a feel for what they could possibly contribute at that point. So, guys, is there anything we've missed at this point? All right.
Kansas was in the bottom.
Kansas.
That's a surprise.
Yeah. So.
Hey, you know what's sad? The 10-win team is only like 2 ahead of them.
Yeah.
Kansas State at 73 or 75, depending on your service. And how many teams above Kansas State are we going to guess that Bill Snyder's going to beat or have a better record than, as long as he's coaching Kansas State? Probably about 4 schools above him, at least.
At least.
Probably. He's been doing it for years.
The craziest thing about all this was, I saw it on someone from Bring On the Cats who I follow, and they pointed out that UAB, who is just now starting up their football program, has a higher recruiting ranking than Kansas State.
Ooh.
That's at what point do you say, hey, it's a lot of work turning these 1-star and 2-star good old boys off the farm into football juggernauts? Why don't we make this easier on ourselves? Like, I don't know. Go for a 3-star, a 4-star, please. There's some recruiting other than, Bill Snyder sending out, handwritten notes. Bill Snyder recruits players in conference better than he recruits, the kids who could be playing for him. It's kind of funny, honestly.
Exactly. Does Bill Snyder sip tea in his living room and make phone calls? And is that his recruiting regimen? Is that pretty much the extent of it?
That's how I like to imagine it.
I like the Rich Mahogany. He told us, I'm in my room with Rich Mahogany with tea in Kansas. If you don't want to come here, we'll be fine.
Hey, Sonny, I'm hanging out listening to some Dean Martin. If you want to come join me.
That's it.
I would like to think the majority of the recruiting. I'd like to think a majority of the recruiting funds are about 50% stationery and ink.
Yeah,
that seems right.
It's just Bill Snyder, and he doesn't write with regular pens. He writes with quills. Oh man, I love Kansas State. It's so fun.
But it's going to be good enough for 8 to 10 wins most seasons.
Yep, somehow.
All right. Yep. Big Full Breakdown every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock on the East Coast. These are the guys that show up most of the time. Got Gerald Tracy from Cowboys Ride for Free. Hunter Cook from Viva the Matador, and Sean Cordy from Today's You. Guys, you bailed me out today. You drive this thing each and every week, so I appreciate it.
No worries, man.
No problem, Mark.